What? I know it.
What's up guys, Mike here, and a long time ago at this point, I did 5 NBA records that will never be broken. That was definitely at the beginning of my whole YouTube career, I guess if you want to say it. So I thought it would be cool to go back and take this video a step further. So today we are going to be doing 7 NBA records that will never be broken. Of course, we're not repeating any of the first 5 I did. If you want to watch that video, link will be in the description. For now, let's jump in with number 7. Minutes in a regular season game. On November 9th, 1989 in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, the temperature suddenly dropped from 30 degrees to 0 as snowfall rained down in the immediate surroundings of the Bradley Center, which had just opened in Europe. Still though, 14,000 fans did come to watch the Seattle Supersonics play the hometown Bucks, and let me tell you, these fans were in for a show as the game would go into 5 overtimes. Yes, you heard that right. So it was not a triple overtime game, not a quadruple overtime game. It was a quintuple overtime game. Quintuple. I had to look that word up. Just kidding, but the Bucks had a well-balanced team led by Jack Sikma and Alvin Robertson that would eventually finish with a 44-38 record, while Seattle was led by Dale Ellis, who had just come off of making his only All-NBA team the previous season, and the X-Man Xavier McDaniel. This was a back-and-forth game, obviously, but the most impressive part of this 5 overtime forgotten gem is that in this 73-minute game, Ellis sat out only 4 minutes, playing an absurd 69 minutes. 69 minutes, that is only...
Sayang.
Utang ina kasi mas.
Lungkot.
Tangina niya. Sayang. Tangina si Leon. Okay lang. Hindi ko alam kung nag-heal.
Nag-words agad ang inabot. Shit. Ako.
Parang nag-kill si Ezreal ang puta. Kill na ni Ezreal ah. Ayun, Gragas ah. Sa ulong puta nag-kill.
May flash? Wala. Grabas di ba wala?
Gragas pa pamit.
Warded kaya to?
Wala hindi ko alam. Ang nasa-ring gusto mo sa gago. Nice one. Ang ganda nun ah. Hindi. Tangin na. Ganda nun ah. Sasali yung game natin sa iyo. Putang mga. Wala dito, wala dito.
Bota. Sakto ang bota. Ah.
An enemy has been slain. Almost dead.
Wait.
Talon yun.
Putang ina. Walang pinagputan.
I think I've learned what I need to here. I needed this. A tribe without tradition is a flock without a shepherd.
Tangina mo! Wala kang puta gago.
An ally has been slain.
You staying in one place. Calls me home. Look at them too.
Rick, i-AD mo na lang yung sa'yo ah.
Ano?
AD.
Baby?
Oo, kasi tatlo kami AP eh.
Sige, sige. Pure ED na to ah.
Oo. Pero kahit kunin mo yung passive nung nung AP. Tapos,
Basta ED.
oo.
Ito ba? Ano?
Kahit kunin mo lang yung passive nung AP mo.
Sige.
Kasi pag lahat tayo puro AP, baka makaunter lang tayo.
Tangina mo ulit ah.
An enemy has been slain.
Tangina. Binagultino. Hindi okay na.
Puta, nasa likod ko.
Sino may sa likod?
Ay, di tumama yung eh. Bobo, puta.
Putang ina. Yung putas.
Bobo.
Ay, nakakutang inang bagay na mo.
Tutukan man, hindi pa tumama ang puta.
Nothing ventured, nothing learned.
Namatay si Nat.
Pick this up.
Your team has destroyed a turret.
Patay. Wala ako doon. Malayo ako, malayo ako. Let's go. Putang ina. Malayo ako, teka. Malayo ako. Malayo ako.
Puro wala 8.
Almost like playing 2 games in one night. And he would also make the most of these 69 minutes played, as he would lead Seattle with 53 points and 7 rebounds. And side note slash fun fact here, the man who holds the second place for the minutes played in a single game record also played in this game, as Xavier McDaniel finished right behind Ellis with 68 minutes played and a stat line of 37 points, 13 rebounds, and 6 assists. Unfortunately though, despite Ellis and McDaniel's best efforts, Milwaukee would win this game 155 to 154. What a game! And so, with that said, due to the fact that the NBA has become very wary of playing their stars huge minutes during the regular season, and also taking into account that the game would need to go into 5 overtimes at least for someone to break this record, I'm going to go ahead and say that Dale Ellis is pretty safe. Number 6, 8 straight championships. 1960s basketball was overall the decade of the Boston Celtics, but what casual fans might not remember is that when the league first started, the Celtics were actually surprisingly mediocre. Boston actually had a losing record the first 5 years they were in the league, and although things slowly got better after that, they were still just considered above average. Then, that all changed in the 1956 draft when the Celtics made a move that would also change the trajectory of how the NBA would go for the rest of time. But before we keep going, guys, I want to give a huge shout out to SeatGeek for sponsoring today's video. Now, if you don't know already, SeatGeek is an app that takes all of the best ticket prices from around the internet and puts them all in one place for you to get the best deal possible. It's also very easy to choose a ticket because SeatGeek takes every single ticket and scores it from 0 to 100. Another cool thing about SeatGeek is that when you're choosing your ticket, you actually get to see a preview of the seat you're about to buy. Also, SeatGeek just introduced Daily Tap, which, if you didn't know, is basically a way to earn free tickets and discounts to events such as a Post Malone concert. The Daily Tap is completely free and you can enter it every single day, which means if you do not tap that button every day, you are kind of giving up the chance to win free tickets. So guys, if you want the best seats for the best prices, download SeatGeek, the link is in the description below, and use the promo code 2KMike for $20 off your first order. Also, do not forget to use the Daily Tap. I want you guys getting free tickets, I want you guys getting discounts. Again, I mean, there's no reason not to just click this button. It's simple and you could win free tickets. And now, back to the video. Because after a 39-33 record in the 1956 season, Red Auerbach publicly claimed that he thought Bill Russell was the best player in the draft, but there was a slight problem. Boston was nowhere near the top of the draft. However, Red Auerbach had his mind set. He wanted Bill Russell, so he made a big gamble, trading Ed McCauley and the draft rights to Cliff Hagan to the St. Louis Hawks in exchange for the number 2 overall pick and the opportunity to select Bill Russell. Now, in hindsight, obviously this looks horrible for St. Louis, but at the time it didn't seem that crazy. What a bunch of NBA fans might not remember is that McCauley had made 6 straight All-Star games upon being traded and eventually was inducted into the Hall of Fame. Meanwhile, Bill Russell was seen as a complete unknown. He played basketball at the University of San Francisco, which was not one of the traditional powerhouses, and was seen as an offensive liability. Despite this though, of course, the rest is history here. Success was almost immediate, as the Boston Celtics would win the 1957 NBA title in Russell's rookie season, and then would go on to win 8 straight consecutive championships from 1959 to 1966. The reason they were able to accomplish this was in part due to Red Auerbach's emphasis on teamwork and running the ball on the fast break. 2 things that, in an era statistically dominated by Wilt Chamberlain, were clearly ahead of their time. Throw in the fact that that the NBA had an average of 9 teams during this time, and that Bill Russell's tenacious rebounding ability and fierce competitiveness made sure that the Boston Celtics never stepped foot on the court without the ultimate desire to win. And then add in Hall of Famers John Havlicek, Bob Cousy, Tom Heinsohn, Casey Jones, Sam Jones, and we truly have a dynasty that will never be matched. AKA, if another team wins 8 straight championships, I will give whoever is listening to this right now my YouTube channel. I'm telling you that right now, you can have it. It's not gonna happen. Number 5, offensive rebounds in a career. I am going to put a disclaimer for our next record because Wilt Chamberlain and Bill Russell's era did not include offensive rebounds. With that said, sitting at 6,731 offensive rebounds, Moses Malone absolutely owns the offensive rebound record for the NBA, and no one is even close. To put this in perspective, second place on this list is Robert Parrish, a man who played 16,011 games in his NBA career, averaged 28.4 minutes per game during that time. By the way, this was a career that spanned 21 seasons and lasted until Parrish was 43 years old. And still, Robert Parrish finished with only 4,598 rebounds, more than 2,000 less than Moses. To say that Moses Malone was the king of the offensive rebound is an understatement. And to show you just how absurd Moses was when he played, Kevin Pelton of ESPN did a statistical analysis which found that in his first season in the NBA in 1977, Moses' offensive rebounding percentage was 19.8%. That percentage was higher than the entire 2012 Boston Celtics team that made the Eastern Conference Finals. So looking at this record, it really is no surprise to me that it is kind of forgotten because Moses Malone, a 3-time MVP and one of the best players the NBA has ever seen, is also one of the NBA's most forgotten legends, and so it makes sense that his 5.1 offensive rebounds a game for his career would be largely forgotten. Not on this channel though. Number 4, most consecutive games played. AC Green was a complete anomaly on the Showtime Lakers, as while Magic Johnson, Michael Cooper, and the rest of this dynasty in the 80s were out partying in the insane nightlife of Los Angeles, AC Green was a deeply religious man who was an upstanding citizen of the community and was also someone who didn't really feel the need to party. It was this personal commitment to excellence that helped him obtain one of the most ridiculous records in NBA history, as after missing 3 games during the 1987 season, his second in the NBA, Green never missed an entire game for the rest of his career. Green would play all the way until 2001, and yes, that is right, let me emphasize this. AC Green did not miss a single game from 1987 to 2001. That is ridiculous, that is absurd. I have no idea how this is possible. So sure, while he did only average 9.6 points per game for his career, he was an all-star in 1990, and he did win 3 championships, and you've got to admit here, there's definitely something to be said for having a player that reliable on your team. Night in and night out, you knew AC Green was playing no matter what. And so, looking at other people here, again, AC Green did not miss a single game in 14 straight seasons. That's 1,192 games. The closest anybody has gotten recently is Tristan Thompson, and he got to 447. That is not even halfway to Green's record. To me, that speaks for itself. This record is just, it's not getting through. Number 3, 11 championships as a head coach. Yes, it is very unlikely that anyone will ever break Phil Jackson's 11 career NBA titles as a head coach, due to the fact that Jackson's new age vision and unique leadership style was actually very similar to Red Auerbach's. Jackson was decades ahead of his time with his Zen approach to the game and the triangle offense. And as for Jackson's own words as to his approach for coaching, he said, I think the most important thing about coaching is that you have to have a sense of confidence about what you're doing. And guys, that's really the bottom line here. Phil Jackson crossed paths with 2 of the biggest alpha males the league has ever witnessed, with Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant. Managing egos of that caliber must have been one of the most difficult tasks an NBA head coach has ever had to do. And we saw in Los Angeles that things did not always go smoothly, as, again, egos are hard to manage, and Shaq and Kobe just could not coexist. However, despite this, Jackson always remained confident, stating that his secret was simply, quote, I was confident and I knew what I was doing. He also has said, you have motivated players that you draft. That's where they come in, and those are the guys that are competitive. You cannot teach competitiveness. And looking back, having Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant really gives you two of the most competitive men to ever step foot on this planet Earth. So I can understand why Phil Jackson really believes in the power of competitiveness. Number 2, most minutes played in an NBA playoff. LeBron James' consistent approach to success on the floor helps him crack our list with an unbreakable record as currently, despite the fact that he is still playing, LeBron already has the record set for most minutes played in NBA playoff history. And of course, the man is just 34 years old and plays like he's 20. Looking back, the Cavs were struggling to say the least when
Hindi alam kung anong gagawing drop ng SKT eh. Yung FPX, ang ganda ng drop lane nila.
Immediately as the teenage-led LeBron James Cavaliers missed the playoffs in 2004 and 2000. However, this proved to be just a bump in the road, as starting in the 2006 postseason, LeBron made the playoffs for 13 straight seasons, and in the process, again, set the record for most minutes played in an NBA playoff career.
Dapat hindi na mangyayari yun eh. Panalo din dapat sila. Uhuli kasi si, sino to, si ADT. Uhuli si Teddy.
Game, big.
Tanging dalawang beses lang tinamaan ng Q ng Israel sa kalaban niya.
30 seconds until minions spawn.
Tara.
Kailangan mauna yung not eh.
Okay.
Kasi yung not magsisisi yun eh.
Tangin na, tatlo yun nandun, no?
Ito.
Huliin mo. Huliin mo.
Ay, sinabot. Sumo.
Huliin mo. Tangin na. Huwag na.
Sayang po. Hindi tumama yung key.
Okay lang. Kawawa itong pedal stick.
Sira pa yung words.
I love a good chase.
Blue start nung Jarvan. Gago ka. Angas. Big ko na. Hindi na pressure yung top bobo.
An enemy has been slain.
Nalit na.
So many benefits. So little time.
Putangin naman. Mali. Ah! Ang ginawa! Ah! Patay mo yan!
An enemy has been
Patay mo
slain.
yan! Good job. Patay yan!
Has been slain.
Putang ina. Dami. Tail flash pang puta.
Putan, tagal nung trap ko. Wow.
Ito mo kakali. Tatlo yan ah.
Wala ko, dalawa lang.
Nice one. TY. Padragon, padragon.
Yung first item mo.
Oh, sinabig ba?
Nakapalog. Patay na yan. Nagdara lang pa.
Sinugod niya pala.
May tele to ah, may tele. Ay, may ano.
Sige.
Potang akali nyo naman.
An ally has been slain.
Detention, detention.
Shut down. I was just wondering.
Detention.
Lagi ako nadadalaw ng akali. Isip pa.
Akali na naman. Nakakapagin lang ba? Mahuli na.
Want to see a hat trick?
Ay! Tagan ka isa! Kaso pa kayo isa!
Bobo na ito.
Let's investigate.
Nalugi kami po.
Sorry, boys. I took the fuzzy cuffs with me.
Kanila pa yung DR. Putik.
Galit ka ah.
Lungkot na ito, puta.
Your turret.
Tapos, ikutin ko lang ba?
Tumama yung tanong ko.
Unahan ko sa ano. Ang dami dyan ah. Mga bro, kaya mo dyan ah.
Tap kay Erick.
Ah, sige. Malalim eh, mag-reach siya mga yun.
Talo sa Roma mo. Bobo naman.
Sabi niya. Sinubad. Utang ina ka ba eh? Ulang. Ulang sa gamit ko mga unga.
Want to see a hat trick?
Ally has been slain.
Alright. Sorry guys.
Let's investigate.
Ay, hindi ko na puta.
Sayang, hindi ka na mag-ulti. Sayang yun, no? Cloud break yan. Sayang, di ka nakapag-ulti, puta.
Nagpag-agad ang puta. Kasi kailangan ko ma-hit yung normal bago ako mag-ano eh.
Ayun, nalimutan ko magpalit na ito eh. Ang yaman ng support ko. Parang tatlong ko.
Panalo tayo sa AOE ito eh.
Ha?
Panalo tayo dyan sa class. 5v5.
Okay, pala ko ng puti yung ayos ko. Okay, so si Shen lang ang tangke. Ibig sabihin yan pa rin ang tawi. Sana yung mamatay yung tawi.
Sorry, boy.
Push na lang natin. Ayun na, binaba na. Tara. Balancing natin. Nice one. Takbo lang.
Putang ina, passive yan, oh. Basura yung passive doon siya ng puta, nakakapit. Dapat inuna ko ng Jarvan. Wala. Nanggalaw yung buwis.
Wala. Naman.
Nakakaasa. Kaya ko buhusin yun eh.
Kaya nga eh. Natont ka lang. Tinamaan ka lang ng tont.
Hindi, yung passive. Yung
Ay,
shield.
passive ba?
Yung shield na hindi mo tatamaan.
Kaya. Sige, kaya na to. Nakaman natin ha. Ang tangi na, pumasok na naman dito ka. Ay! Ang ina, grabe yung damage mo na.
Dominating.
Paano dyan? Pumunta ka sa
Gago, kulit eh. Ang kulit magmutang-puta.
Asa ka?
Okay.
Putang ina.
Ano namatay? Sa puno?
Patay sa kalaban ng tuta. Putang ina.
Unat niya na.
Sabi nung bunot na nga eh. Ano, tara.
Bumalik ng paso.
Ay, gago, mali.
Digabot. Digabot.
Tangin ang bobo ng Nautilus ang puta.
Hot on the train. Miss? No shot.
Kasi tapla tayo. Shield. Wala na sabot.
Saan sila? Ako, ito to. Ilan yan? Ang dalawa. Ako, ang ngipin nila.
Lobo nun, no? Visit.
Sino? Nautilus?
Oo.
Nagsaka ka pa? Nakuha pa?
Nakuha pa. Ay.
Nakuha tayo?
May smite pa.
Putang ina mo, huwag ka dito! Gago pa talagang marami! Tag na mo, wala. Gago. Tagilan na lang dito! Gago.
Kalahati. Hindi ka, putang ina mo ka.
Tagilan mo. Magpaparam lang ako.
Garpan, bawas ko kalahati eh. Ang tira po.
Tangin na, uli na naman ng mid natin. Bogong po. Alis ako dun ha. Ang nangin. Wala akong mana.
Sige.
Wala ako.
Tingin ko mamatay ako. Tingin ko talaga.
Ay. Hindi. Walang mga tao.
Nagtitin lang. Nandiyan kayo nagdidiba. Ito, Jarban.
Tangin, makapatay na tumato.
Ay! Nag-flash!
Abutan mo, bobo na. Matay ka ma.
Nag-flash yung Jarban. Patay na dapat.
Flash?
Nag-flash.
Wala yung mga tao ah.
Yung Nook parang tanga lang maglaro eh.
Uy, putang ina, gano'n! Wala!
Kahit lang, kahit... Kailangan makita ko yung jungler.
Ang ina nyo kayo. Pili kayo kayo. Pili ka!
Nabot.
Namatay ang puta.
Hindi naman tangin mo
Kunin yung
ano
dragon.
eh.
Ang ina. Namatay yung akali yung puta. Gago. Tinamaan ng cube, guys. Ang ina ayaw mo.
Dapat eh.
Dami, alis na tayo.
Puta, ang dami dito. Pero ako din sa sisi ang puta.
Teka. Delikado.
Dan, di tumatama yung isip ko. Ano, di makapasok.
Sabi ng bumulong.
Hindi nakapasok yung isip yung ano.
Hindi pa tayo delikado ang puta.
Hindi na kaya.
Hindi na kaya, hindi na kaya.
Mama.
Binabuhat na lang ng ito. Galit na galit sa Zyra ang token. Ganda pa naman ang setup ng Zyra dun.
Tanga
Huling
lang
huli eh.
Puta.
Want to see a hat?
Ang takot na takot. Parang hindi pala nakakali kaya pala. Nakabali siya nakakali ah.
Ayun, ganda ito.
Nahuli ka ah, wait lang.
Miss? Not by a lunch.
Kaya ka magandang ulti lang. Sa magandang ulti lang ng Nautilus. Ano, dapat.
Ano na ako.
Ang ina lang.
Walang sit. Wait lang kahit. Ano pinagagawa nitong mga to? Nag-flash in ang puta.
Matubuhan. Ano siya nasa taas?
Nag-flash in.
Ano natin?
Hindi ko mabot.
Ang sakit ko na.
Ally has been slain.
Ang ano, wala siyang bilang. Fuck.
Your turret has been
Ano yung sinahan niya? Ay,
Patay.
patay. Patay.
Let's investigate. Hot in the trench. Headshot. On for a shakedown.
Diba tayo isa?
Ano ba? May choke point.
Want to see a hot trick?
Putang na.
Pag tumatama yun, bisan na reset yun.
Nakawarmog ah. Patay na ba?
Meron pa yung pamboy pa. Yan, GG, push nyo na. Push nyo na, push nyo na.
Tapos na ba?
Puta, napirang puta, hindi ako natira.
Ay, buta na hindi kita. Tumagal-tagal ka pa ng konti. Ay, langit. Akali tumatay na yan ah.
Oo. Hindi, siya pa ata pumatay sa akin. Ano nga alaman? Ay, hindi, Kaisa.
Ayun na.
12 na last game.
Ay, nako.
Currently, he does only sit 679 minutes ahead of second place Tim Duncan, but of course, what makes this record unbreakable is that the man is still GOAT. And now that Anthony Davis has touched down in Los Angeles and the Lakers are in a must-win now mode, the odds that in the next few seasons the Lakers will be in multiple playoffs and that LeBron will be racking up these playoff minutes is very, very high. And number 1, free throws made in the NBA Finals. Currently, Jerry West holds the NBA Finals free throw record with 455 made free throws total. The next closest is Bill Russell with 321, and the closest active player is LeBron, who has 257, almost 200 behind Jerry West. Doing the math here, LeBron has made the NBA Finals 9 times in his career, which means
Sali
he
mo
made
yung
an
ano.
average of 28.55 free throws a finals. That means that in order to break Jerry West's record, he would need to keep up these averages
Ayaw
while
niya
also
naman.
making the NBA Finals another 7 times. That is not happening. I'm just going to say it right now. It's not happening. And again, players that played earlier on in the NBA with less teams did have a huge advantage here because if you played on a really good team, you had a very good chance of making the NBA Finals more, just based on the fact that there were not as many teams. With that said, I also think now is a good time to mention that Jerry West is the only NBA player in history to win a Finals MVP on a losing team. Because yes, when looking back at Jerry West's career, he did make the Finals a lot of times. I'm talking he made the Finals 9 times, and he only won the Finals once. Jerry West was 1-8 in NBA Finals play. Yikes. You can't really blame Jerry for going 1-8 though, as just look at the 1969 Finals, a series that saw Jerry average 37.9 points, 4.7 rebounds, and 7.4 assists a game at the age of 30, as the Lakers would lose to the Celtics by 2 in Game 7 of the Finals. It was the 1969 Finals where Jerry West was given the NBA Finals MVP on the losing team, making him the only player to ever achieve that accomplishment. And after the Lakers lost, John Havlicek would walk up to Jerry and say, quote, "Jerry, I love you," which goes to show you how much respect was had for Jerry West by his biggest rival, the Boston Celtics. And it is also possible that this is another record that will never be broken, winning the NBA Finals MVP on the losing team. And there we have it, guys. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you're new to the channel, make sure to subscribe. During the NBA season, we are posting 3 videos a week on the main channel. The goal is to be posting every 2. Just a few years ago, people said no team would ever win 73 games. People said no one would ever average a triple-double for a season. People said no one could possibly have more than 366 turnovers in a year. Well, as you know, all of those people turned out to be wrong. In just the last 2 seasons, all 3 of those things have happened. Because if there's one constant in sports, it's that things change, players evolve, and records are broken. Now, with that said, I'm just gonna get this out of the way right now. There are plenty of NBA records that might never be broken, unless things drastically change. No one's probably going to average over 50 points in a season anytime soon. As for a lot of these other unbreakable records, such as most assists in a game, longest win streak, or even scoring 100 points in a single basketball game, well, I think it's possible that those records will be broken. So here are 4 unbreakable records that will be topped. Number 4, assists in a game. Now, in order to come up with unbreakable records I think will be broken, I first had to look at what records people thought were unbreakable. And one that was on pretty much everyone's list was the most assists in a single basketball game. A record that was set by Scott Skiles when he was playing for the Orlando Magic in a game against the Denver Nuggets. Now, I do have to say at first glance, this record does seem pretty amazing, as in a December matchup in 1990, Scott Skiles racked up an otherworldly 30 assists in a single game, despite the fact that he was a very average NBA player. Now, that might seem harsh, but it's true. The 1991 season was Skiles' best season of his career, and he was still not even an all-star and only averaged 8.4 assists a night, a number that ranked him 10th in assists per game that season. Meanwhile, John Stockton averaged 14.4 assists per game that year, and he could only come up with a season high of 28 assists in a game. So how did Scott Skiles finished with 30 assists? Well, looking back at that night, many have called Skiles' performance the perfect storm. For one thing, the team he was playing, the eventual 20-62 Denver Nuggets, were coached by Paul Westphal, the resident Mike D'Antoni of his era. Westfall's teams played an extreme run and gun style, and the Nuggets that year would average 120 points per game and gave up an average of 130 points per game. So the fact that the Denver players were basically trained to not play defense was certainly a factor here. The other thing Skiles had going for him was that the Magic just had one of those games where everything went in. They would end up scoring an absurd 155 points and shot 57% from the field. Two numbers that are almost as ridiculous as Skiles' 30 assists. And just looking at this record-breaking 30 number, at first glance it seems very breakable, especially because there are several guys with 28 assists, 27 assists. It's not like 30 assists is standing alone on some island here. But then you see that the most assists in the 2000s is 24, and maybe you start to question things a little, but I still think this record will eventually be broken. For one thing, while 30 is a big number, it's actually not as big as it could have been, because during this game, Scott Skiles had no idea that he was even near the record for assists in a game. In fact, he finished the game with more than 20 points because he was just playing the game naturally and wasn't chasing any type of record. Which means that nowadays, if a player were to rack up a ton of assists early and were to chase the record, well, I think it wouldn't be as hard as you would think to break. In this modern NBA where guys are putting up crazy stats almost every single night, 31 assists in one game doesn't sound too far-fetched. I mean, just this season alone, Ricky Rubio had 10 assists in a single quarter. And if we're looking at the guy who is probably the #1 candidate to break 30 assists in a single game, well, we just have to go back a few months to find that on New Year's Eve, James Harden dropped an absurd 53 points and 17 assists on the New York Knicks. I mean, Harden scored 53 points and had 17 assists. If he was only looking to pass that night, just take that kind of usage rate and then convert most of the made baskets to assists. 31 assists is very possible. Number 3, longest win streak. I'm going to be honest here, the Los Angeles Lakers win streak is more than a little intimidating. In the 1972 season, in the span of 65 days, the Lakers did not lose a single game. This incredible run saw them rack up 33 straight wins while outscoring their opponents by 17 points a game. Led by Jerry West, Wilt Chamberlain, and Gail Goodrich, the 72 Lakers would finish the season with a 69-13 record and would go on to beat the Knicks in the NBA Finals. These Lakers put together one of the best seasons in NBA history, and up until very recently, I could see why people thought this streak would never be matched. As until 2007, the second largest win streak in NBA history was only 20 games by the Washington Capitals in the 1940s. But then the Rockets won 22 straight in 2008, and then the Heat won 27 straight in 2013, and then the Warriors won 28 straight in the 2015 and 2016 seasons. And yes, a win streak between 2 consecutive seasons is allowed by the official record. I'm not really sure if I agree with that, but that's another story for another day. Regardless of that, the theme here is that until very recently, it did seem that this 33-game win streak would never be touched. But now, well, already in the last 5 years, 2 teams have approached the record and had a real shot to break it. In fact, after the Warriors lost to the Bucks and ended their streak, they won their next 5 games in a row, which means if they had won that Bucks game, they would have won 34 total games in a row, breaking the record. As for the Heat, well, they lost to the Bulls by 4 points to end their streak, won 2 games in a row, lost to the Knicks, then finished out the year by winning 8 more games in a row. So if they had just won those 2 games against the Bulls and the Knicks, they would have finished with a 39-game win streak to end the season. And yeah, both teams could have won games that would have broken the win streak, but they didn't. I get that. The point remains here that these 2 teams were already very close to breaking this record. So to say 33 straight wins is unbreakable would just be kind of ridiculous at this point, especially because as we've seen recently, many teams have finally realized that the best way to build a team is through the draft, which means that the best way to build a team is to tank, which means that the teams at the top end up with an inflated amount of wins. That's why recently we've seen the Warriors Warriors win 73 games, while the Spurs also won 67 games in that same season. That's why we've also seen 6 of the 10 largest win streaks in NBA history come in the last 9 years. And when you account for the fact that the NBA seems very open to expansion teams, which would dilute the talent level and give teams at the top even more easy wins, well, I don't see why a dominant team can't catch fire in an easy part of their schedule and win 34 games. Number 2, free throw percentage in a season. We don't really have to go too in depth for this one. The current record holder for free throw percentage in a season is Jose Calderon with a pretty outrageous .981 free throw percentage. As in 2009, Calderon took 154 free throws and made 151 of them. Now, in order to qualify for the free throw percentage leaderboard, a player only needs to make 125 free throws in a season, which is less than 2 a game. This means that I don't expect someone like Curry or Harden or someone who shoots a ton of free throws in a season to ever break this record. The reason is that those guys just play too many minutes, they just take too many tired free throws. It just seems really unlikely that an NBA star would only miss 2% of his free throws all year. With that said though, if a player is only taking around 130 to 150 free throws in a season, then shooting over 98% from the line is doable. It's really just a matter of one guy having a statistical anomaly of a season from the free throw line. Because as most people who have researched this agree, it takes about 750 shooting attempts for a player's true shooting percentage to show. So if you take someone like Jose Calderon, an 88% career free throw shooter, and only look at his numbers for 1 year, he might shoot 98% from the free throw line 1 year like he did in 2009, and he also might just shoot 80% from the free throw line like he did 1 year later in 2010. So until someone shoots 100% from the free throw line in a single season, I'm always going to think the free throw record could be broken. It just comes down to a guy taking a limited amount of free throw attempts and having a statistical anomaly of a season from the foul line, which is pretty boring, yes, but I think it's a reasonable explanation of why this record can be broken.
Make this quick. We have someplace to be.
Welcome to Summoner's Rift.
These rooms are not for eyes such as yours.
Minions spawn. slain. An ally has been slain. An enemy has been slain. Enemy double kill.
Sad.
I can tell you what's on this scroll. What's on my back? That's not your concern.
Enemy killing spree. Enemy killing spree.
Take care with this one.
Rick, nandiyan sa baba yung tatlo.
You know what I could use?
Tagal naman mag-push nito.
An ally has been slain. Enemy rampage.
Ay!
You have been slain. Enemy
Namatay ako,
killing
ang puta.
spree. An ally has been slain.
Better work.
God. Graded din po.
Enemy has
Nice
been
one.
slain. Double kill. Double kill.
Nag-epic ang puta. Corby ang puta.
Putang inang laro yan.
Nag-FF.
Tangin ang lakas kaya nung Orn. Putang ina, di nga makalapit eh. Bad trip ang puta.
Hindi pa ako nag-i-enjoy.
Kaya sabi. Tangin ang laro yun. Buisit ang puta. Magkasama yung Kane tsaka yung ano. Magkasama yung Kane tsaka yung Yumi.
Oo.
Taba?
Okay, last game.
Okay, last game.
Hindi ako nag-enjoy ang puta.
Bad trip ang putik. Ang inalaro yan. Nag-FF ang... Magpakasira ulo ng mga tao eh.
Magkasama din pala yung ano nila eh. Lisandra tsaka ano eh.
Ano?
Kogmaw.
Yung ano?
Lisandra tsaka Kogmaw magkasama.
Kaya.
Gap na gap eh.
Tangin na natawag ako kanina, naka-double kill ako, di ba? Tangin na nakita akong nag-shield yung lulo, pinasok ko na agad eh. Tangin sarap talaga mag-pista na. Tangin na kasi binan yung LRL eh.
Every draft class brings something different to the table. Some are filled with tons of depth and others are top heavy with future stars. In this video, we're gonna look at the best player from every draft class in this decade. So if you guys like my content, make sure you like and subscribe. We did it. We got 9 likes on the last video, so let's try to go crazy this time and get 10 likes on today's video. and we're gonna hop right into it. Okay, guys, we're gonna start this off with the first one of the decade. That's gonna be the 2000 NBA draft. This draft has gone down as one of the worst in NBA history, but still had some decent players throughout, such as Mike Miller, Hito Turkoglu, and who I have as the runner-up in Michael Redd. Despite coming out of the second round, Michael Redd had an 11-year career where he averaged 19 points per game. But while he might have had a better prime in terms of a career, I have to give the edge to Jamal Crawford, who has played the last 19 seasons where he's averaged 15 points per game. He's one of the few players in NBA history to have success with that flashy, almost street ball style of play, and he's one of the best players ever coming off the bench, bringing home 3 Six-Man of the Year awards. For the 2001 draft, we saw some great talent come out, including Tony Parker, who was an integral part of the Spurs' success throughout this decade. You got Joe Johnson, who in his prime was one of the most versatile scorers in this league, and Gilbert Arenas, who was on pace to become one of the greatest scorers ever before injuries and off-the-court issues quickly derailed his career. So for the 2001 class, I'm going to have to go with Pau Gasol. Obviously, like the last class, I'm giving a lot of value to longevity. Pau Gasol has played the last 18 seasons where a majority of it, he was a top big man in the league. On his career, he's averaged 17 points per game, 9 rebounds, shooting 51% from the field. Throughout his career, he's managed to become the Rookie of the Year, a 2-time NBA champion, 6-time All-Star, and 4-time member of the All-NBA teams. Next, we got the 2002 class, which wasn't anything special. We saw Yao Ming go #1 overall, and if his career wasn't so short, he would probably been the best from this class. We had Caron Butler, Tayshaun Prince, Carlos Boozer, Matt Barnes, but I'm going to have to go with Amari Stoudemire. Amari was a top power forward in the league, really from his rookie season up until knee injuries really slowed him down going into his 30s. From 2003 to 2011, Amari averaged 23 points, 9 rebounds, shooting 54% from the field. In the process, he became a 6-time NBA All-Star, a 4-time member of the All-NBA second team, and 1-time member of the All-NBA first team. Next, we got the 2003 NBA draft, and while this is one of the best drafts we have ever seen, there's no question who the best player is. This class featured Carmelo Anthony, Chris Bosh, Dwayne Wade, Kyle Korver, just to name a few, but it also featured a player in the conversation for the greatest of all time, and that's LeBron James. LeBron is still competing at the highest level to this day, but over his career has averaged 27 points, 7 rebounds, 7 assists, shooting over 50% from the field and 34% from 3. He's a 3-time NBA champion, a 4-time MVP, a 15-time All-Star, and 12-time member of the All-NBA first team. For the 2004 class, we saw guys like Al Jefferson, Luol Deng, Andre Iguodala, and J.R. Smith, but I'm going to go with the #1 overall pick in Dwight Howard. In his prime, he was one of the most dominant players on both ends. On his career, he's averaged 17 points, 13 rebounds, 2 blocks, and to this day is still a respectable big man in the league. He's an 8-time NBA All-Star, an 8-time member of the All-NBA teams, and a 3-time Defensive Player of the Year. For 2005, there is no question. It features some players that had great stretches in their career, such as David Lee, Darren Williams, and Danny Granger. We also saw guys like Lou Williams, but it has to be Chris Paul, who despite being undersized, has become a 9-time All-Star, 8-time member of the All-NBA teams, and 9-time member of the All-Defensive teams. Next, we have the 2006 draft, and this would have probably been Brandon Roy if it wasn't for injuries, as in just his 3rd season, he was averaging 23 points on great efficiency, so we're allowed to decide between guys like Paul Millsap, Rajon Rondo, Kyle Lowry, but I'm going to have to go with LaMarcus Aldridge, who's become one of the most lethal post scorers we have ever seen, averaging 20 points, 8 rebounds, shooting 49% from the field across his career. For 2007, again, there is no question. This draft featured some solid talent such as Al Horford, Mike Conley, Defensive Players of the Year, Joakim Noah, and Marc Gasol out of the second round. But second overall, we saw the Oklahoma City Thunder take Kevin Durant, who would go on to become one of the best scorers in NBA history. Over his career, he's averaged 27 points, 7 rebounds, 4 assists, shooting 49% from the field and 38% from 3. He's an MVP, a 2-time NBA champion, and 10-time NBA All-Star. The 2008 draft has produced a lot of solid players such as Kevin Love, Brook Lopez, and Serge Ibaka. Now, if it wasn't for injuries, this decision would be a lot tougher, as the #1 overall pick was Derrick Rose, who won MVP in just his 2nd season, but had some devastating knee injuries throughout his career that have really limited his potential. So we're going to go with another MVP and 4th overall pick in this draft, Russell Westbrook. Westbrook is an 8-time All-Star, but his most notable achievement in his career is averaging a triple-double.
The summoner's rift.
Ano sabi nito?
Minions have spawned. Cold steel and a target are all I need.
Nakakatakot yung sinsaw, puta. Pag nila pag tinawakan kami yan, lagot na.
Restraints not.
Hindi wala yan.
My thing.
Pangwasakan eh.
Your resourceful work is closing. A summoner has disconnected. A summoner has reconnected. They can't stop.
O syempre, di na ako lalapit. Brand, ang ina mo.
This won't take long.
Hindi lagi yung ano.
An ally's been slain.
Putang ina, sabi ni. Ang ina tumalon sa tanga. Nahirapan.
They can't stop me. No one tells me what to do. Not anymore. An ally has been slain. An ally has been slain. Has been slain.
I will. It's better for
Ang tanga ng pagkakas. Ang ina.
Enemy killing spree.
Ang ina mo, Brad. Parang hindi ka pa nakakapatapatong sa tahanan.
An enemy has been slain. Shut down.
Uy, niya ito.
the only rule that matters is that your enemies
Dang. Wow. Ano may naharap niya ako? Bakit ba?
Ah, nabuhay pa.
Tangin mo!
An enemy has been slain.
Ay!
Taklap, no? Kaya masakit yan, face rush. Tapos yung lisin natin, di pa marunong umikot. Sarap.
the finish. Ang dalawang blue cover.
Nice.
I know, they can try. Shut down.
Grabe bakbakan sa baba. Oh, tap down. Tangina, laking pera nun.
Take one life at a time. Fast.
Ano ko?
I love what I
Hindi
do.
marunong mag-extend.
Killing spree. Shut down. Has been slain. Everybody's just a
Tangina, sakit ng pinto.
Napahamak pa ako doon sa ginawa ko. Naka-early kasi.
has been slain. Ally has been slain.
Utang yun, sakit ng pinto ah.
Your turret has been destroyed.
Naglaruan po.
Tangina, daming tao na bago patay si Gago. Dalawang torres na mid. Stop na? Stop na ba? Medyo bobo gumalaw yung brand ah.
Your turret has been destroyed.
Putang ina, ang sakit. Ah, shit. Ay!
Enemy has been slain.
Putang ina, good play, good play. Putang ina, ang sakit. Lala. Ay, tuwan. Tangina, nanalo tayo sa clash. Ah! Tangina, ang sakit ng sinsaw.
Has been slain.
Putang ina nun.
Hindi na pala busy.
Yung or nandyan na.
So many enemies, so many knives. Has been slain. You're gonna I got a pack full of
Bumibigatan yung putang ina yan. Nakakapit yan.
mali siya ng ini. Ay, ng ini.
Ang inabot siya.
Hindi, mali pati ng talon.
Ako, utangin na mo Brad, tumakbo ka na. Patayin ka dyan, pag tinamaan ka. Walang malakas na marami. Walang malakas na marami. Hoy! Tangin na, natakot na. Takot na.
My enemies won't.
Ang kasasay dito. Ang ina mo.
Ah, ayun Bob. Diba?
Nice one, patayin mo yung pistana.
Has been slain.
May pangantaw na ako sa Orn, ha?
They're scared.
Dito yung meron.
Your team has destroyed I think. The only rule that matters is that your enemies
Nice. Wala. Lilingon, huwag ka lilingon. Huwag ka lilingon! Tangin na, baka maging asin ka pag nabinan ka. Tangin ang army.
has been slain.
Baran?
Hindi ata.
Baran?
Patay na yun.
Rampage.
Para, Baran. Diyan ka lang. Kaya namin to. Erick. Huli ka. Nagrekta na.
ako nawala ako.
Ha?
Pag ano si LeBlanc, nag-dash. Tapos pag ini mo nawawala, hindi mo makikita animation.
Basta kaya nung kasa din yung LeBlanc eh, iniiwan ko lang dun eh. Tangin na kapag nag-fronta yung Orn, dun na ako pumapalag eh. Namangkas tayo pag nag-fronta yung Orn. Lugi siya dun sa ano natin, sakay.
Yung gold nila nandyan sa team shop.
Ha? May TV ka ba?
Meron.
Sige. Lagi namin to. Ano ng tao.
Your team has destroyed a turret.
GG. Lig na.
Enemy has been slain.
Tapos na to. Wala na yung tangga nila.
It's not the kill. It's the cause.
Tangin na mo. Dito tayo.
Has destroyed a turret. Your team has destroyed an inhibitor.
Stop. Sige, dyan ka. Tap ako. Ba't susunod dyan? Dyan. Uy, lang. Uy, takbo na. Diba sa akin ito? Uy lang.
They can't stop me.
Takbo lang. Huwag kang lilingon. Pag lumingon ka, atin ka. Punta na ako. Sinasayang yung barrel. F1. Tara. Sayang yung pagstano. Ang ganda pa naman ng build eh. Tara. Malambot lang isa no? Kaya patayin.
Magic's fine.
Platinum na ako. Tanginan nyo. Pakyo kayo. Tanginan nyo. Platinum na ako.
Pwede.
Kipsi yun.
Team has destroyed an inhibitor.
Tanginan nyo. Platinum na ako.
Okay, GG pala yung gina.
Okay na. Platinum na.
Pagpala yung gina.
Pwede na Maronel. Tanggap mo na ba ako?
Over the past 3 seasons, the 2009 draft features
Si
some of the
AJ
NBA's
slap
top
na din si AJ.
Ano?
Si AJ.
Diyan na lang natita ng ating gold. Tangina nyo. Platinum 4 na ako.
Talents such as DeMar DeRozan, Blake Griffin, and MVP James Harden, but the best player in this class is Stephen Curry.
Okay,
Curry has
what's the
changed
name?
the game of basketball. On his career, he's averaged 24 points, 7 assists, shooting 48% from the field and 44% from 3. He's a 3-time NBA champion, a 2-time MVP, 8-time NBA All-Star. Right now, he's consensus top 3 point guard of all time, and by the end of his career, could be considered the greatest. Obviously, Harden is right behind, but it would be disrespectful to have anyone but Curry here. Injuries have hurt the 2010 draft pretty bad, as you could argue a couple years ago that John Wall or DeMarcus Cousins was the best player in this class. Right now, they are both dealing with Achilles injuries. Other players from this class include Gordon Hayward, who's